When my mother was in her late 30s, she took a correspondence course in ventriloquism. And my father bought her a very expensive ventriloquist figure. I remember when we went to pick Lennie up, that's what my mother called him. Lennie was built by a woman who had been a 1950 Las Vegas performer, and she had a marionette act. So I remember we went to her house, and the door creaked open, and out came this wizened old woman who looked like a marionette herself, and behind her, from her ceiling, hung all these hundreds of marionettes. Well, then he came out. She had sculpted him and painted him. He had eyes that moved, and he had real human hair. But his best feature was his real human teeth, children's teeth. Well, my mother became ventriloquist and did ventriloquism for Sunday school and vacation Bible school and a nursing home. She even did some corporate Christmas parties for the kids. But the story happens 45 years later, so fast forward to the last year of my mother's life. She's going to die in December. But this is the summer, and we're visiting for the weekend. That my mom and dad lived in Burnett, Texas, in the hill country. And we were visiting, and one morning, Mom and I were just together by ourselves, and she pulls out this suitcase and says, "Happiness is a ventriloquist little friend." And she says, "Michael, I would like you to have Lennie." She was giving away everything that summer. Well, I took Lennie back home, and that fall, when I was returned to teaching, we had a open mic lunch once a month that I put on, and I thought, wouldn't it be funny to bring Lennie out? Now, I'm not a professional ventriloquist. My lips move, and I don't have an act. We just got up and I just chatted with him, spontaneous talking. Well, it always is a hit. Lennie is always a hit because at the end I always say, and he has real human teeth, and then he opens his mouth and people kind of scream and yell. Well, that October, a friend of mine had a charity gig. 4 bands were on there, and in between each band, I was going to MC, just get up and banter. Well, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if at the very end I pulled Lennie out? That would be great. So I did. I got Lennie out at the very end, and we just get up there. And again, I don't have an act. There's no jokes. I just get up there and we talk. And the crowd goes wild. I can feel the electric current running through the room. And everyone's running up, and they're holding their cameras up and taking pictures and videos. It's good. Well, I don't have much to talk about, so after about 5 minutes, I said, "Well, Lennie, I'm putting you back in the suitcase before you say something inappropriate." And as I'm putting him back in the suitcase, I said, "Lennie, I think we have a career in front of us." Well, I get off the stage, and one of my friends runs up to me and says, "Michael, did you mean to do that?" I said, "What?" He said, "Michael, did you mean to do that on stage?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Look," and he shows me his camera picture. Now, professional ventriloquists, when they're doing their act, they always put their dummy on the stool. That way you use they do the eyes and mouth with that hand, but they can gesticulate and talk. Well, I was not professional, so I was holding Lennie in my left hand, and Lennie's legs and my thumb came up, and it started to gesticulate wildly, unbeknownst to me. And the audience thought that Lennie was exposing himself vigorously. So, I don't know if I told you this, but this event was a charity gig for a children's camp. I was never asked to come back, even though I had played music at the thing for 10 or 15 years. I had never again asked back on stage. But I was so glad that it happened here and not at my school. But the real fear I had was that someday my mother, and not just someday, but soon, my mother would hear about this before she went to her grave. She dead. But that's a story for another time.